lovely viewers, you are most welcome to our channel Poetry Online. In this video, we shall be discussing the detailed analysis of Sonnet 1 from Fairest Creature with Desire Increase by William Shakespeare. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates on all our new videos. Once again, let us assure you of a very interesting discussion. Get ready for this lesson. William Shakespeare was born in Stratford, United Kingdom on the 26th April 1564 and died on the 23rd April 1616. It is believed that he had no university education. He is widely known as one of the greatest English poets and playwrights. The work of art written by him consists of 38 plays, several sonnets, and at least 2 long narrative poems. He was England's national poet. So, we're going to discuss from Fairest Creature with Desire Increase. As we said earlier, this sonnet is the first sonnet of William Shakespeare. Before we begin our lesson, let's just ask ourselves this question. What is a sonnet? Or, when you hear the word sonnet, what comes to your mind? A sonnet is a 14-line poem in iambic pentameter. A sonnet is a 14-line poem in iambic pentameter. Let's look at the basis of a sonnet. A sonnet contains 14 lines. A sonnet is written in iambic pentameter. There are various rhyme schemes for the different types of sonnets, but all Shakespearean sonnets have the same rhyme scheme. A Shakespearean sonnet has a rhyme scheme A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G G. A Shakespearean sonnet is divided into 3 quatrains and a rhyming couplet. The first quatrain establishes the subject or the main theme of the poem. The second quatrain develops the sonnet's theme. The third quatrain often contains a turn or a twist called a volta. The rhyming couplet serves as a conclusion of the sonnet. So, what are the characteristics of a Shakespearean sonnet? As we said earlier, a Shakespearean sonnet has 14 lines, which is divided into 3 quatrains and a rhyming couplet. All Shakespearean sonnets have the same rhyme scheme, A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G G. Each line is written in iambic pentameter. Thus, each line consists of 10 syllables. The syllables are divided into 5 pairs of iambs. An iamb is an unstressed syllable, followed by one stressed syllable. Let us have our first reading of the poem. From fairest creature with desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die, but as the riper should by time disease, his tender air might bear his memory. But thou, contracted to thy own bright eyes, feedest thy life's flame with self-sustained fuel, by making a famine where abundance lies. Thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel, thou that art now the world's fresh ornament, and only herald of the goddess spring, within thy own bad barriers thy content, and tender child, makest waste in the garden, pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due, by the grave and thee. After reading the poem for the first time, what then can we say the subject matter of the poem is? The subject matter of this poem is the need for procreation or the passage of time. This poem explores the need for procreation and the need to leave behind your footprints on the sands of time so that one can be remembered even when one is dead and gone. The speaker prescribes procreation as the only solution or the only way to ensure the continuous existence of man and the remembrance of a person's memory and everything he or she stands for. Therefore, the poem is all about the need for procreation and the passage of time. Time in this poem is presented as an enemy of man or a threat to youthfulness or beauty. Hence, to immortalize one's beauty, one needs to have children so that, in the event of death, these children will carry on with a person's memory. Let's read the poem for the second time. From fairest creature will desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. But as the riper should by time disease, his tender air might bear his memory. But thou, contracted to thy own bright eyes, feedest thy life's flame with self-sustained fuel, by making a famine where abundance lies. Thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel, thou that art now the world's fresh ornament, and only herald of the goddess spring, within thy own bad barriers thy content, and tender chill, makest waste in the garden, pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due, by the grave and thee. So, let's try to paraphrase this poem, as it will make our analysis easier. We desire that all created things may grow more plentiful, so that nature's beauty may not die out. But as an old man dies at the hand of time, he leaves an heir to carry on his memory. But you, interested only in your own beauty, feed the radiant light of life with self-regarding fuel, making a void of beauty by so obsessing over your own looks. With this behavior, you are being cruel to yourself. You are now the newest ornament in the world, young and beautiful, and the chief messenger of spring. But you are burying the gifts you have been given within yourself. And dear one, because you deny others your beauty, you are actually wasting it. Take pity on the world, or else be regarded as a selfish glutton. By the laws of gods and nature, you must have a child, so that the grave does not devour the memory of your loveliness. So, let's begin with our analysis of the poem, beginning with the first quatrain. From fairest creature with desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. But as the riper should by time disease, his tender air might bear his memory. So, the first quatrain establishes the subject matter, the main theme or main metaphor of the sonnet. Let's see how this is done. William Shakespeare begins his sonnet by introducing four of his most important themes. Thus, the theme of immortality, the theme of time, procreation, and selfishness, which are interrelated in this first sonnet, both thematically and through the use of images associated with business or commerce. The sonnet's first four lines relate all of these important themes. Individually, each of these lines addresses a separate issue. Line 1, from fairest creature with desire increase, concerns procreation, especially in the phrase with desire increase. Line 2, that thereby beauty's rose might never die, hints at the immortality of time, in the phrase might never die. But as the riper should by time disease. Line 3 presents a theme of time's unceasing progress. And line 4, his tender air might bear his memory. Line 4 combines all three concerns. A tender air represents the immortality of parents who will grow old and die. According to the sonnet, procreation ensures that our names will be carried on by our children. If we do not have children, however, our names will die with us. Once a person dies, there is nothing to be remembered of him. Hence, the need for us to procreate. This poem is an address to a handsome young man who is carried by the pleasures of youthfulness. The poet tries to explain to the young man the vanity of youthfulness and that youthful beauty is temporal. This young man is so obsessed with his own youthful beauty without realizing that beauty fades with time. The speaker explores the need to procreate in order to ensure continuity of the beauty of the young man through his children. The poet uses his poem to explain that beauty fades with time. Hence, People need to take steps to prevent the fading away of their beauty. Time is a threat to the beauty of man. However, children might continue his legacy. The idea of this poem is that if we want to live forever, then the only way to do this is to have children. This first four lines of the poem sets the tone and mood for the rest of the poem. Let's go on to the next quatrain. But thou, contracted to thy own bright eyes, feedest thy life's flame with self-sustained fuel, making a famine where abundance lies. Thyself thy fool, to thy sweet self too cruel. The second quatrain develops the sonnet's theme. Here, there is an advancement in the argument that William Shakespeare raised in the first quatrain. The second quatrain begins with the exaggerated description of the beloved's physical beauty, before changing the tone of contempt for the beloved's refusal to have an heir. The scenario the poet creates in these four lines apparently has been rejected by the young man, whom the poet addresses as thou in line 5 to 12. Interested only in his own selfish desire, the young man is an embodiment of narcissism, thus, a destructively excessive love for oneself. The poet makes it clear that the young man's self love is unhealthy, not only for himself, but for the entire world. This is because the young man does not share himself with the world by having children to carry on his beauty. By so doing, he creates a famine where abundance lies and cruelly hurts himself. The speaker now shifts his attention to the man in question. This is a young man who is self-conceited and sees no need to procreate. This young man is too self-absorbed, has a lot of self-praise and self-possession, which blinds him from seeing the repercussion of his actions. The speaker sees this young man as his own worst enemy for not procreating and realizing the importance of passing one's beauty to the next generation. Let's move to the third quatrain. The third quatrain, as we said earlier, often contains a turn or a twist called a volta. Though that art now the world's fresh ornament, and only herald to the gaudy spring, within thy own bud barriers thy content, and tender chill makers waste in the garden. Rather than describing the situation at hand, William Shakespeare switches to directly address the young man, complimenting the fair young man on his beauty, while gently and lovingly teasing the tender child for not reproducing and encouraging him to change his mind on the subject. There's an implicit warning to the fair young man not to go to his grave without an heir, and the worst about burying his happiness and making waste through his miserly and niggardly behavior. This quatrain confirms that, indeed, the young man is beautiful. However, beauty is subject to time, as he will eventually lose his good looks. This beauty that the young man is so proud of will eventually fade away if he does not pass his beauty to the next generation. The rose becomes a warning, threatening the young man with the idea that he might wither and die without passing his beauty to the next generation. The last line of the third quatrain rebukes the young man's decision for wasting time before procreating. Let's move to the rhyming couplet. This couplet serves as a conclusion of the poem. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and thee. The couplets of the poem describe the seemingly selfish nature of the beloved by making the choice not to procreate. William Shakespeare describes how the beloved, or the fair young man, is denying what the world deserves, thus his bloodline, in the events of death. Instead of ending the sonnet on a positive note of feeling, while alternating between dark and bright tones, the tone of the couplet is negative, since the sonnet is overshadowed by the theme of blame, self-interest, and famine. The final couplet, thus, The last two lines of the poem reinforces the injustice of the youth not sharing his beauty with the world. The farming that he creates for himself is feathered in the phrase to eat the world's due, as though the young man has the responsibility to have children, and the world also has the right to expect the young man to father a child. In this couplet, the poet presents two choices to the young man, thus, to procreate and fill the world with his legacy, or die with everything he has. He encourages the young man not to just have sympathy for himself, but for the world at large. Throughout the poet scars the young man for hoarding or keeping all his youthful beauty to himself. Thus, the poet describes this as greed. Let's now move to the major themes in the poem. The major themes of this poem are the theme of beauty, procreation, love, immortality, death, or the passage of time, or the passage of human life in time, and selfishness. Let's now discuss the literal devices in the poem. In line 2, that thereby beauty's rose might never die, we come across a metaphor. The beauty of the young man is compared to that of a rose, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. We have symbolism in the following lines, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. Feed us thy life's flame with self-sustained fuel, though that art now the world's fresh ornament. Here, rose, flame, and fresh ornament represent beauty. We equally have some alliterations in this poem, from fairest creature with desire increase, and from and fairest. Feed us thy life's flame with self-sustained fuel, a repetition of S sound and self-sustained. Thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel. Sweet self, a repetition of S sound. Within thy own bad barriers thy consent, the repetition of B sound in bad and barriers. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.